dailies this morning. Before I introduce my panelists, we'll weigh in on some of the issues and of course exactly what happened yesterday in the country from a regional and global outlook as well. But this is what is captured on the Daily Nation: a day of chaos, shut down, it says. Well, two contrasting images emerged from the ashes of the chaos yesterday to provide a remarkable commentary of the two worlds of a country teetering on the precipice. One, where the rule of law and order carried the day, and the other, where civil disobedience disrupted economies and livelihoods and even brought lives to a violent end. And you can see a picture there of what was happening at Mlolongo during yesterday's anti-government protest. This is a police vehicle that was burnt down near the expressway exit at Mlolongo. Well, protest deaths. There is a report that 7 people were killed and dozens injured. Schools closed because parents decided to keep their children at home over safety fears. There were business losses, traders counting losses as they closed shop in fear of vandals. Transport crisis, matatu truck drivers keeping off the road over retests and also fuel prices. And protests were spreading. Skirmishes in at least 20 counties as Kindiki now warns of arrests. It's a full coverage on page 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8 of the Daily Nation, including more pictures from the counties of exactly how the situation was. Quickly, Kisii County there, Homa Bay, Mombasa, as well as the Nyeri counties. Let's see what else we have here. Tear gas, bullets, and destruction. It just, it's really a tough situation we witnessed yesterday, and these are some of the pictures that were captured yesterday. You can see in one picture a police officer walking along a section of the Nairobi Expressway in Mlolongo that was vandalized yesterday during the anti-government protest. You can see just besides that a protester pushing a burning tire in an estate that's in Nakuru City yesterday. More pictures there. A man at Sirenga Mabundu Junction in Nyamira County protesting against the high cost of living. Police officers arresting a demonstrator in Mathare, that's in Nairobi County. And here you have more pictures of exactly what transpired yesterday across the country. Chaos, rebellion and oases of peace as Kenyans protest at high cost of living. Well, these are two contrasting images emerging from the ashes of the chaos yesterday to provide a remarkable commentary of the two worlds of a country teetering on the precipice. One, like I said, where the rule of law and order carried the day, and the other where civil disobedience disrupted economies and livelihoods and even brought lives to a violent end. One where the president was unperturbed by the disorder outside the gate of his office and was in fact on a diplomatic foray, and one where thousands poured to the streets burning tires, ejecting passengers from matatus, chanting anti-government slogans and engaging police officers in day-long running battles. That is exactly what we witnessed yesterday. And in the 6 or so hours between sunrise and the time Raila called a press briefing to announce cancellation of the Kamukunji rally, parts of the country had already ground to a halt, with rioters being met with brute police force. That is what we're also going to be trying to take a look at. How is the image, as it dented our image regionally and continentally as well? We'll be trying to understand that as well in just a moment. Chaos, rebellion as Kenyans protest over high cost of living. Remember, that's one of the biggest issues that brought Kenyans out yesterday onto the streets. And this particular report captures the sentiments of Kenyans across different parts of the country, from what happened in Wote town to Kisii County, all the way to Kakamega and to Turkana County, and exactly what was happening. Kindiki there, that's the Interior Cabinet Secretary, Professor Kithure Kindiki, saying we'll go after sponsors of protests. Last evening, he said all those involved in the mass destruction of property during the day-long demonstrations in Nairobi and various parts of the country will face the law. In a statement, Kindiki took a swipe at opposition leader Raila Odinga and a clique of politicians he's working with. That's what he said, saying they are responsible for the widespread violence, looting, and destruction of property. In fact, he says various investigative agencies are working around the clock to arrest and prosecute all those who aided and abetted crimes committed during the protest that left many injured and properties destroyed. Meanwhile, this is also what we expect. Prepare for a third wave of protests, Raila tells Ruto. Well, you can see a defiant Azimio la Umoja, One Kenya boss Raila Odinga there yesterday, vowing to lead another third wave of anti-government protest, even as he called off his Kamukunji rally yesterday. He was addressing journalists at the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Foundation in Nairobi, and Odinga termed the countrywide protest a success despite police brutality, alleging there was an elaborate scheme by Kenya Kwanza to attack innocent Kenyans at the Kamukunji grounds. And he spoke as anti-riot police continued to engage a group of young people who were determined to access the grounds. Police had swung into action moments past 11 a.m. as the Azimio attempted to erect a dais, firing tear gas at them and a number of youths. Well, hell broke loose as the youth retaliated by pelting the police with stones, and that is what happened. And it led to the cancellation of what was expected to be a culmination of the protests at the Kamukunji grounds yesterday. And you did see the Azimio leader, or One Kenya leader, Raila Odinga, together with the other leaders from that team, cancelling that particular event. Also, just as that was happening, transport disrupted across counties as PSV operators went on strike. Transport sector paralyzed across various parts of the country. Matatu operators and other drivers of the public service vehicles going on strike to protest mandatory retesting of drivers. We just saw that report there by Rose Wangoi, really detailing what the reasons were for the drivers and the associations really for going on strike. The nationwide protest leaving many commuters stranded in many PSV termini in major urban centers, including Nairobi. Frustrated commuters stood waiting for resumption of services while others planned alternative means. In Nairobi, although some PSVs were operating as early as 6 a.m., there was a shortage of vehicles on various routes. At the country bus, there were no buses available to transport people to rural areas, and in other parts of the country as well. You can get that full report, what was happening in Nyeri, in Kisumu, and as well as in Homa Bay and Siaya as well. And when it comes to the state of the economy, business also lost millions as shops close over protests, which means that many businesses remained closed yesterday as protests rocked the capital, Nairobi, and other parts of the country, resulting to losses of an estimated 3 billion shillings, underlining the economic cost of the protests. In a day of drama, the police were locked in running battles with pockets of protesters who lit bonfires and barricaded roads in various towns, like I said, Nakuru, Nairobi, Kisumu, which were usually a beehive, of activities on a typical Wednesday, were allegedly deserted as many businesses opted not to open in fear of looting by protesters. This is coming at a time where we're already a struggling economy, reeling from the effects of prolonged drought. We have a general election just ended last year. We have an economic slowdown last year, and compounded by the general global economic challenges, which means that Kenya can, is really affected by the political activities currently at play. And this is what KEMS actually had to say with regards to the same. All right, we are going to move forward from that as well and see what else we've managed to capture on the Daily Nation. Well, as that was happening, Iran sets to increase investment in Kenya after MOUs signing. Well, Kenya and Iran have signed 5 memoranda of understanding following bilateral talks between President William Ruto and his Iranian counterpart, Dr. Ebrahim Raisi, at State House in Nairobi. And you can capture to see what those 5 MOUs really are, which include, by the way, President Raisi to facilitate the export of more tea, meat and agricultural products to his country. And also, what else do we have here? Let's see, President Ruto said he had procured and secured a commitment from President Raisi to facilitate some of those things. Now, through Iran, Kenya will also be able to export products to Central Asian countries. And full report there by Masi Chelangat on that particular state visit by the Iranian president to Kenya. And remember, Iran is actually one of the biggest importers of Kenyan tea, with about 4 billion worth exported in the first quarter of this year. Meanwhile, Jubilee feud deepens as Kega team digs in. That's the Jubilee party wranglings. Now, she's now going to be heading to the High Court after the Registrar of Political Parties under Ruto published the names of interim officials. You have former President Uhuru Kenyatta's faction on one side, led by ousted chairperson, Vice Chairman, I beg your pardon, David Murathe, and the Secretary General, Jeremiah Kioni. You can see the picture there, who are faulting Nderitu for gazetting the officials despite pending cases. It's also emerging that the fight for millions from the political party's fund is at the center of this standoff. The Kioni team is now threatening to cite Nderitu for contempt, arguing that they're yet to exhaust all legal options before the changes are effected, as per the letter from their legal counsel, that is Jackson Awela. Yesterday we did see Gazette notice from the Kanini Kega team, which now calls for a national delegates conference, I think, which is expected to happen a little bit later in the year. I think we're going to move forward away from what is captured here, but also very interesting opinion pictorial there. Well, calm down, calm down. It all has two different meanings. Calm down, but who's going to calm down, really? That is a conversation a lot of Kenyans are having, really. Who needs to calm down? All right. Business Daily, how markets are shrugging off opposition-led protests. The Kenya financial markets largely shrugging off disruptions caused by the opposition-led protests, recording gains, in contrast to the business sector, which has suffered losses, running into billions of closures. NSE actually has gained 10 billion to 1.783 trillion on Wednesdays. Investors developing apathy to political noise. You can get that report also on the ticker of the Business Daily. Cash-rich parastatals race with investors to loan state money. Jambojet leans on KQ Cash amid losses, and Kenya flats with 17% interest on 5-year paper, as well as auctioneers shaking billionaire David Langat's empire over 2.1 billion debt. All right. Taifa Leo, very quickly as well, uchumi walemazwa. Shughuli za biashara zatatizika kote nchini mchana kutwa, polisi wakabiliana na mamia ya waandamanaji. All right, it's exactly what happened yesterday, and also Taifa Leo capturing images of exactly what happened in those different parts of the country of Nakuru, Nyamira, Meru, Mombasa, captured on the front page of Taifa Leo, really just talking about what happened. Biashara nchini, ghasia zatatiza biashara nchini, Raila kutoa mwelekeo baada ya kusimamisha mkutano Kamukunji. We expect to hear more of that. Also, sakata ya KEMSA yahusisha maafisa wadogo wa ufisadi. So that's what, at least you can get a feel of what is captured on the Taifa Leo paper. Kenya runs zatia saini mwafaka. And on the East African publication as well, let's see what is captured on the front page of the East African. 5 things in way of candidate Tshisekedi. A limping economy, skewed mining contracts, Kagame and war in the East are among issues making DRC leader lose sleep as he gears up for elections on the 20th of December. We'll take a look at that in a moment. 12 years of slave of instability, a ray of hope for South Sudan. President Kiir's independence gift to citizens. Elections will be held in 2024. Also, deepening Africa's capital markets, the cost of DFCU's rebranding drive, also Shabab derailing Somalia's East Africa train, and on celebrating Kiswahili Day. You can also find that on the East African publication, but also captured on our pictorial at the front page of East Africa, the Saba tax protest. That's what happened last week on Friday, where you had the opposition leader Raila Odinga addressing the residents at the Kamukunji grounds on Friday. And among the grievances, of course, were issues of taxes and high cost of living. So that is also what is captured on the business day. I beg your pardon, the East African publication this morning. And maybe just to give us a glimpse of the situation now and on the back of what is happening here in the country. Let me introduce my guest here in studio this morning, Bwana Nasongo Muliro, who is a foreign policy and security specialist from GLOSEPS. A very good morning to you, Nasongo. Good to see you.
Morning.
Indeed, and from the last time we met, a lot has happened, especially here in the country, but also beyond our borders. We'll be having a conversation on that in a moment. But also joining us virtually is Professor Macharia Munene, historian and international relations expert as well. I hope you can hear me well, Prof. Good to see you as well.
Thank you very much. I can hear you very well, and it's good to see Muliro.
Indeed, fantastic. And we were supposed to also have Dr. Abdulwahab Abdisamad, the Chair, Institute of Honor of Africa Strategic Studies, but he will not be joining us this morning. However, we will continue with the conversation. Let me begin with you, Muliro. Yesterday we witnessed disturbing scenes across the country, a number of chaotic scenes. We've heard of loss of life, destruction of property, mayhem that reigned across those parts of the country, especially in the capital. First of all, just what is your view of the situation at hand here in the country?
Yeah, and I was, you've just shown the nation's cartoons. One, the president saying calm down, and the leader of the opposition saying calm down.
So who calms down?
So it is calm down and calm down. So it points to one thing, that it is almost, I would say, is a war of egos. That this situation is putting us in what some people have called a conflict trap. That we are in a vicious circle that we may not be able to get out, in the sense that because of economic challenges, we are raising our grievances. And our grievances, when they are not addressed, they lead to violence. But the paradox is that this violence also now leads to further degeneration of the economy. And therefore we expect, it's like a cycle, we expect now even again more grievances. So we're almost in a conflict trap, the way I'm seeing. And the reason is that there are several balls in the air on the side of the government and the opposition. That at this time, you ask yourself, is the government almost giving fodder to the opposition? Because I was listening to the truck drivers. They are very genuine complaints. That we have so many things that if you look at them, the net effect is to compound or increase the conflict. Why should you have a crisis concerning, at this time, when the economy is at a hurting level, you start a process of vetting or again asking the truck drivers to pay something for exams? Why should you at this time be so much concerned with the issues of Jubilee conflict at this time? Why should you at this time, when there is a very heavy crisis, go very low on public participation, come up with issues that the public feels they have not been involved in?
Do you feel the political elite is blind, really, to the plight of the common wananchi, the Kenyan who is really struggling? And it cuts across the political divide, whether it is within the current regime or the opposition as well. Yeah,
actually, that's why I called it like a war of egos and a conflict trap. We are in a circle. You are raising grievances because the economy is not very good, but the methods you are using are destroying the economy further and therefore more grievances. But I would say that just as you've mentioned, that's a very good observation. You've summarized what I was thinking about. The net effect is that the government on one side looks like it is detached. The opposition on the other side is very reckless. It looks like we must go down, all of us. Let us burn Kenya to the ashes, then come back now where everybody has lost and we start afresh. So it looks like we are all detached from the people. And it is actually like what we are saying is a war of egos. I'd wish at this time that everybody at the back of their mind, including the opposition, they know that the issue does not require a snap solution.
Right.
But on the side of the government, even if they tell us they have a very long-term good thing for us, but they have two things that are not working very well. Number one is the messaging. We are not convinced. We even don't know. That plan might only be in the boardroom, in the minds of the technocrats in Kenya. It might be very good. But do we know even in the villages, they don't know that this plan, there is little pain for greater gain. And therefore it gives a loophole for the opposition to get in. But then we are asking the opposition, apart from asking them that raise an alternative plan that can solve the immediate issues, we are also asking them, is, you know, the idea of, is violence a solution to what we have? And it is in this way that, what is the measure of, I was listening to the leader of the opposition saying the demonstrations were a success. And my question is, what is the measure of a successful demonstration? On the backdrop of what happened yesterday?
Right.
Is this measure a shutdown, deaths of people? You have said 7. Nation is saying 7 people have been killed. We hear 3 billion was lost yesterday. Is that a measure of the success or the measure of success of a demonstration that now the government is coming down to talk with you? That should have been the measure.
Okay. Let me hear from Prof as well before we take a quick break. Prof, your quick assessment of the situation at hand at this point from the backdrop of really what transpired yesterday.
Well, thank you. The situation is a sad one. The country is in a state of chaos. Could be better than it is. The demonstrations yesterday at least were novel in the sense that they were very well orchestrated to have effect across the country. So the leaders, each of them had a station or appeared to have a station to go and show up and then somehow mobilize people instead of being seen to be a Nairobi affair and make it look like a national affair. But it seems the whole thing was just a political game. To a large extent, it's like a political con game. The government has not been helping itself. It's been making unnecessary mistakes that it has no business. It shows itself to be very insensitive to the plight of the people. And that insensitivity then plays right into the hands of Raila Odinga, who has made it very clear that he wants Ruto out of the State House so that he can get in. That's the main thing. He refuses to accept that Ruto won the election. How he won is not the issue, but there's procedures, the constitution, and the ways that had been designed, mainly with Raila's backing and thinking, because the 2010 constitution is largely a Raila thing, and so it was his program, and he lost. But he refuses to admit that he lost, and because he refuses to admit that he lost, he mounts and says he's going to mount ungovernability, which he's very good at, until he moves Ruto out of the State House so that he can get in.
But Prof,
and in doing that, then he is helped, as I said, by Ruto, who keeps on showing his sensitivity to the plight of the people. It plays right into the hands of his political opponents.
All right, Prof, I know we have to take a break, but it begs the question, Raila Odinga is surrounded by legal minds who certainly understand the constitution, and they know that a president cannot just be replaced like that. They have an exercise where they're collecting signatures, and the main intention from the Azimio side is to say they want to delegitimize the Kenya Kwanza regime and the president. To what end? We're yet to find out, but let's take a quick break. We're going to be back in a short while. The hashtag is MLiveNTV. Talk to us.